I'll never forget the sound of that laughter. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I got back from my doctor's appointment. Just a routine checkup, nothing serious. I'd barely closed the front door when I heard them. Unfamiliar voices bouncing off walls I'd raised myself 35 years ago. Laughter that didn't belong in a house that did. I left my purse on the entry table. My hands were shaking, though not from fear. It was something else. Something I couldn't name yet. I walked slowly toward the living room, each footstep solid on the hardwood floors I'd chosen piece by piece, laid board by board. And then I saw them. Hannah, my son's girlfriend, was standing by the bay window, gesturing toward the backyard with that proprietary wave she'd perfected over the past 2 years. Beside her stood a man in a gray suit, taking pictures with his phone. A man I'd never seen in my life. "The finishes are all original," Hannah was saying, her voice bright and professional. "Look at these high ceilings, this natural light. It's a real gem of a property." I stood frozen in the doorway. The stranger nodded, scribbling something in a notebook. "And what's the asking price?" Hannah didn't even hesitate. $800,000. Fair price considering the neighborhood and lot size. $800,000, the exact value of my house. A number that only appeared on my private appraisal documents, locked in my desk drawer. The air felt thick. Then she saw me. Her eyes met mine for a fraction of a second, and something in her expression shifted. Not shame, calculation. She was measuring what to say, how to spin this. "Oh, Joan," she said, her voice dripping honey. "I didn't hear you come in." I didn't answer, just held her gaze while the stranger extended his hand. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm James Mitchell. I came to see the property." My mouth moved on its own. "To see my property?" Hannah let out a nervous laugh, stepping closer like we were sharing a secret. "Well, I just thought it would be good to explore options." She lowered her voice. "After all, you've already lived your life, Joan. This house is too big for just one person. Don't you think it would be better to sell so we could all enjoy that money?" The silence that followed felt like it could suffocate us all. Mr. Mitchell coughed uncomfortably, looking between Hannah and me like he'd just realized he'd walked into a minefield. But I didn't take my eyes off her. Off this woman who'd moved into my home 2 years ago asking for temporary shelter. Who slept in my guest room. Who ate from my plates. Who swore to my son she'd love him for richer or poorer. "You've already lived your life." Those 5 words circled in my head like angry wasps. I took a deep breath, felt the blood rush to my cheeks, not from embarrassment, but from something more primal, something that had been sleeping in me too long. When I spoke, my voice came out calm, too calm. "And you?" I paused, letting each word drop like stones in still water. "You've just started to ruin yours." Hannah's smile froze on her face like ice cracking. "Excuse me?" I didn't repeat myself. I turned to Mr. Mitchell, who was already putting his notebook away with obvious haste. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm sorry you've wasted your time," I said with glacial courtesy. "This house is not for sale. It has never been for sale, and whoever told you otherwise has absolutely no right over it." The man nodded quickly, mumbling apologies as he headed for the door. Hannah tried to stop him, but it was too late. The door closed with a solid thud, and then we were alone. You know what they say about building something with your own hands? That you can feel it in your bones, even years later. Every nail you drove, every beam you measured, every mistake you corrected at 3 a.m. because the inspector was coming at dawn. That's how I feel about this house. It's not just wood and nails and paint. It's my blood, my sweat, my 30-year marriage, my widowhood, my son's childhood. It's me. Let me take you back. Back to when I wasn't Joan Brookstone, 68-year-old widow living alone in a house too big for one person. Back to when I was Joan Morrison, 33 years old, with ink-stained fingers and plaster dust in my hair. It was 1990. I'd just gotten my architect's license in a world that still looked sideways at women with hard hats and blueprints. My husband, Arthur, worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. Our son Patrick was 3 years old, running barefoot through our cramped 2-bedroom rental in the city, where the neighbors upstairs sounded like they were rearranging furniture at midnight every single night. "One day," Arthur would whisper over instant coffee in the early mornings, "we're going to have our own place, one that you design." I never said one day. I said soon. For 5 years, I worked 3 jobs simultaneously, designed houses by day for a firm that paid me half what my male colleagues made, taught technical drawing at the community college in the afternoons, and at night, after Patrick was asleep, I'd spread freelance blueprints across our dining room table, designing for small builders who needed cheap, fast plans. Arthur never asked me to stop, never said that's enough or get some rest. He took care of Patrick when I had deadlines, made me tea when my eyes couldn't focus anymore, massaged my shoulders when the weight of worry bent my spine. "You're the strongest woman I know," he'd say, and I believed him, because I had to. In 1995, after 5 years of sleeping 4 hours a night, of saving every dollar we could scrape together, of skipping vacations and birthday parties and anything that cost more than $20, we did it. We bought the lot. It wasn't much, just under a quarter acre south of Denver, in an area that was practically rural back then. Tall weeds and scattered rocks. No trees except one scraggly cottonwood that looked half dead. I remember the day we first stood on that piece of land. The dirt was still damp from recent rain. Arthur took my hand and asked, "What do you see?" I closed my eyes. I saw walls rising, windows catching morning light, a backyard where Patrick could play, a big kitchen for Sunday dinners, a study lined with books, a master bedroom with enough space for a reading nook, a workshop in the garage. I saw our entire life. "I see everything," I told him, and then I got to work. I designed every inch of that house, every angle, every window, every closet. I chose the orientation to capture sunrise in the bedrooms. I calculated ceiling heights so summer heat wouldn't pool. I designed deep storage, spacious pantries, bathrooms with natural ventilation. But I didn't just design it. I built it. Yes, myself. Because we didn't have money for a full crew. We had enough for a foundation contractor and a licensed electrician for the wiring, but that was it. Everything else, we'd have to do ourselves. So I learned to mix concrete, to lay brick, to level floors, to use a circular saw, a belt sander, a pneumatic nail gun. My hands, which had only known pencils and T-squares, became covered in calluses and scars. Arthur worked beside me every weekend. Patrick played among the sandbags, building his own castles while we raised the walls of ours. It took 3 years. 3 years of literal blood, sweat, and tears. 3 years of nights when I'd collapse into bed with aching hands and a screaming back. 3 years of waking before dawn to check our progress, to fix what we'd done wrong, to keep building. But in 1998, we moved in. I'll never forget that first night. We didn't even have our new bed yet. It was being delivered the next day. So Arthur and I lay on the master bedroom floor, on sleeping bags, staring up at the ceiling I'd planned, feeling the walls I'd helped raise. I cried. Sobbed, actually. Arthur got scared. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," I whispered. "It's just, we did it. We actually did it. This house wasn't just bricks and concrete. It was living proof that when a woman decides on something, the whole damn universe better step aside." The years passed. Patrick grew up within these walls, learned to ride his bike in this driveway, celebrated birthdays in this living room, brought home report cards to stick on this refrigerator, had his first heartbreak in that bedroom upstairs. Arthur and I grew old here, celebrated anniversaries, mourned his parents' deaths, then mine, planted trees that are now taller than the house, repainted rooms as styles changed, fixed what broke, maintained what we'd built. Every corner held a piece of us. And then 8 years ago, Arthur got sick. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. 6 months, the doctors said. He lived for 11. 11 months where this house transformed into a hospital, a refuge, a temple. Where I transformed into a nurse, a warrior, a widow in waiting. I cared for him here, in our bedroom, in the bed we'd slept in together for 30 years. I gave him his medications, bathed him when he could no longer do it himself, read him his favorite books, held his hand while pain tore him apart. And he died here, in my arms, looking at me with those eyes that had watched me build empires from dust. His last words were, "Take care of her. She's yours too." He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about the house. Because he knew. He knew this house was more than a place to live. It was my legacy, my masterpiece, My proof that Joan Brookstone had existed and left her mark on this world. After he died, Patrick wanted me to move in with him and his girlfriend at the time. "Mom, this house is too big for you alone," he'd say. "Come live with us." But I refused. How could I abandon the only place where I could still feel Arthur? How could I leave the trees we planted together, the rooms we painted side by side, the garden where I'd spread his ashes beneath the lemon tree we'd put in the ground the day Patrick was born? I stayed. Alone, yes, but home. 2 years ago, October 2024, everything changed. I was pruning the roses when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Patrick standing there with 2 suitcases and a woman I'd never met. "Mom," he said with that nervous smile he got when he was about to ask for something big. "This is Hannah, my girlfriend." Girlfriend, not fiancé, just girlfriend. Hannah Sterling was 32 years old. Patrick was 41. A 9-year age gap, which wasn't necessarily a red flag, but something about her set off alarm bells I couldn't explain. She had long, straight, dark hair that looked professionally blown out, blood-red nails, clothes that were tight and branded, or at least trying to look branded, and that smile. God, that smile looked like it had been practiced in a mirror. "It's so nice to meet you, Mrs. Brookstone," she said in a soft, almost childlike voice. I shook her hand. It was cold. Too cold for a warm October day. "Nice to meet you, too. Are you coming in?" Patrick cleared his throat. "Actually, Mom, we need a favor." Of course they did. Turns out Patrick had lost his job 3 months earlier. "Company restructuring," he said. "Last hired, first fired. And Hannah," he explained, "worked in sales but was currently between positions." Between positions. A fancy way of saying unemployed. "We need to stay here for a little while," Patrick said, not meeting my eyes. "Just until I land something new. A couple months, max." A couple months. Max. I should have said no. Should have asked why they couldn't go to her family. Should have set clear rules, boundaries, end dates. But I looked at my son, this man I'd raised alone after Arthur died, and I saw something in his eyes that scared me. Desperation. "All right," I said. "You can stay." Hannah's smile widened, a flash of victory she tried to disguise as gratitude. "Thank you, Joan. You don't know how much this means to us." Joan. She was already calling me by my first name, not even married to my son, and already bypassing Mrs. Brookstone. The first week was tolerable. Hannah was polite, helpful. She'd help clean up after dinner, make breakfast sometimes, ask if I needed anything from the store. Patrick spent his mornings sending out resumes, doing video interviews. Afternoons, he and Hannah would go for walks or lock themselves in the guest room. I tried to give them space. They were a couple. They needed privacy. But then the changes started. Small at first, almost imperceptible. Hannah began reorganizing my kitchen. "This is just more practical, Joan," she'd say, moving my pots and pans from where they'd lived for 25 years. She changed the curtains in the living room without asking. The old ones were just so dated. She bought a new sofa, on sale, and relegated my favorite armchair, the one Arthur used to read in, to the basement. "This one's more modern." Every time I protested, Patrick would intervene. "Mom, it's not a big deal. She's just trying to help." Help? By erasing my presence from my own home? But I stayed quiet, because I didn't want to be that mother-in-law, the complainer, the interferer, the one who makes drama out of everything. So I swallowed my discomfort, and I smiled. The couple of months turned into 6, then a year, then 18 months. Patrick found sporadic freelance work, but nothing permanent. Hannah kept looking, but never found anything that was the right fit. And meanwhile, my house stopped being mine. Hannah started inviting friends over without notice. They'd settle into my living room like they owned it. Use my good china, the set I only brought out for Christmas. Leave dirty dishes in the sink for me to wash. When I asked them to contribute to expenses, Patrick would give me those sad puppy dog eyes. "Mom, you know things are tight. As soon as we get ahead," but they never got ahead. And Hannah acted less like a guest and more like an owner every single day. She started calling my house our house, my garden our garden, my living room our living room. When her friends asked, she'd say, "Yes, we live here. It's the family home," as if I were just a tenant in my own property. Patrick seemed blind to it. Or worse, He didn't want to see. 6 months ago, I confronted him. It was after Hannah had redecorated my dining room without even consulting me. "Patrick," I said when we were alone, "we need to talk." He sighed like he already knew what was coming, like he was tired of hearing it. "Mom, please don't start." "Start what? Defending what's mine? Asking for basic respect?" "Hannah respects you," he said, but his voice sounded hollow, rehearsed. "She just wants the house to look nice, to be a pleasant place for everyone." It was pleasant, before she got here. Patrick closed his eyes. "Mom, don't do this." "Do what? Remind you that this is my house? That you're here because of my generosity?" "I know it's your house!" he exploded. "You think I don't know? You think I don't get reminded every single day how grateful I'm supposed to be?" I froze. "Hannah doesn't remind me," he continued, voice shaking. "She just acts like she has a right to be here. She has a right because I gave it to her." He ran his hands over his face. "Mom, I love her, and I need you to try to get along with her." I love her. Those 3 words explained everything. My son was so in love, so blinded. He couldn't see what I saw with crystal clarity. Hannah didn't love this house. She didn't love him either. She loved the security, the comfort, the free roof over her head. But I couldn't tell him that. Because when you tell a man the woman he loves is using him, he doesn't listen. He just hates you. So I swallowed my words, nodded, let him think he'd won. But that night, lying in my bed, I knew something had broken between us, something we might never repair. And then came last Tuesday, the day I walked in and heard Hannah showing my house to a buyer, the day she told me I'd already lived my life. As I stood there in my living room, watching Hannah's face turn pale, watching her scramble for words, I felt something inside me harden like steel cooling in water. For 2 years, I'd been accommodating, understanding, patient. For 2 years, I'd let them treat me like an inconvenience in my own home because I didn't want to lose my son. But standing there, looking at this woman who just tried to sell my house out from under me, the house I'd built with my own hands, the house I'd raised my son in, the house where my husband had died in my arms, I realized something. I'd already lost Patrick. I lost him the day he chose to believe her over me, and it was time to get him back. But first, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. That night, after Hannah and Patrick went to bed, I did something I hadn't done since Arthur's funeral. I got down on my knees beside my bed, and I prayed. But I didn't pray for patience. I didn't pray for understanding. I prayed for strength. Because I was about to go to war, and Hannah Sterling had no idea who she'd just declared war on. The next morning, I came downstairs for breakfast like nothing had happened. Hannah was in the kitchen making coffee. When she saw me enter, she visibly tensed. Her hands froze on the coffee pot. "Good morning," I said in a neutral, almost friendly tone. She blinked, confused. "Good morning, Joan." I didn't say anything else. Just took out my favorite mug, the blue ceramic one Arthur gave me for our 10th anniversary, and waited my turn for the coffee. The silence in that kitchen was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Patrick came in minutes later, looking like a man who'd slept poorly and woken up worse. My son, 43 years old, civil engineer, hair already thinning at the crown, those wrinkles around his eyes that made him look older than he was. He looked at me like he was expecting an explosion, but I just smiled. "Sleep well, honey?" His confusion was obvious. "Yeah, Mom, same as always." "Good." I took a sip of my coffee. "I'm going out for a few hours. Have some errands to run." Hannah and Patrick exchanged a quick glance. She looked relieved. He looked wary. I didn't give them time for questions. Grabbed my keys, my purse, and left without looking back. But I wasn't running errands. I was going to see the only person I could trust. Bobby Sullivan's law office was in a renovated brownstone downtown, 20 minutes from my house. I'd worked with Bobby on 3 architectural projects back in the early 2000s, a small office complex, 2 residential buildings. He was an architect back then, but he'd gone to law school at night and eventually switched careers entirely. Real estate law, property disputes, that sort of thing. When his secretary showed me in, Bobby stood up immediately, concern etched across his weathered face. He was 67, a year younger than me, with snow-white hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. "Joan," he said, coming around his desk to hug me. What's wrong? You sounded upset on the phone. And then, unable to hold it in any longer, I broke. I cried. Cried like I hadn't cried since Arthur's funeral. Cried for the humiliation, the betrayal, the rage I'd been swallowing for 2 years. Bobby let me cry. He didn't say a word, just passed me a box of tissues and waited. When I could finally speak, I told him everything. Every detail, every humiliation, the reorganizing, the friends, the cold dinners eaten alone, and finally, yesterday, Hannah showing my house to a buyer. His expression changed with each revelation, from concern to disbelief, from disbelief to barely contained fury. "Joan," he said finally, his voice grave. "This is serious. If she's trying to sell your house without your permission, we're talking about fraud, potentially criminal fraud." "I know. But Bobby, I need more than just she showed the house. I need to know what she's really planning. I need evidence." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "What are you asking me to do?" "I want you to investigate her. Everything. Credit history, criminal record, social media. Everything you can legally access. And," I paused, "I want to set up cameras in my house." "Hidden cameras?" "Yes. I need to know what she's doing when I'm not there. What she's saying. What she's planning." Bobby was quiet for a long moment. "You know what you're asking, right? This isn't going to be a simple conversation anymore. This is going to be a legal battle, and your son is going to be right in the middle of it." My heart clenched. "I know. And you're prepared for that?" I thought about Arthur, about the 3 years we spent building this house, about the morning he died when he told me to take care of her, the house, because she was mine. "I'm prepared," I said, "because I'm not going to let some con artist take everything I've ever worked for." Bobby nodded slowly. "All right, give me 3 days. I'll have the cameras installed tomorrow when they're out of the house, and I'll start the investigation." "Thank you." "Joan," he leaned forward, "whatever we find, it might be bad. Are you ready for that?" "I'm ready," I said, but I wasn't, not for what was coming. The next day, Tuesday, while Hannah and Patrick went to lunch with some friends of hers, Bobby's security team came to my house. They were professionals, discreet. They installed tiny cameras in the living room, the kitchen, and the hallway outside my bedroom. So small you'd never notice them unless you knew where to look. They showed me how to access the feeds on my laptop, how to download and save footage. "These are legal," the lead technician assured me. "It's your property, and you have legitimate concern about potential criminal activity. Just don't tell anyone they're there except your attorney." After they left, I sat in my study and tested the system. Crystal clear video. Audio so good I could hear the clock ticking in the living room. I felt like a spy in my own home. But if that's what it took, so be it. For the next few days, I played a role I'd never played before. I became the confused old woman Hannah had always wanted me to be. I started forgetting things, where I put my keys, what day it was, names of people I'd known for years. "Oh, I'm so forgetful lately," I'd say with a nervous little laugh. When Hannah looked at me, I could see her mentally noting every lapse, filing it away. I started leaving documents on my desk, bank statements, an old will that left everything to Patrick, property tax records. One afternoon while I was in the garden, I watched on my phone as Hannah crept into my study. The camera caught everything. Her going through my papers, taking photos with her phone of my bank statements, my appraisal documents, my property deed. Every second of that video made me feel sick, but every second was also evidence. I continued my performance, started making comments about how tired I was of dealing with paperwork. "Oh, Hannah," I said one afternoon while she was helping me sort through mail. "Sometimes I think I should just give Patrick power of attorney. Let him handle everything. I'm just too old for all this." Her eyes glittered like a shark smelling blood. "That's not a bad idea, Joan. That way you could just relax, not worry about all the complicated stuff." "Yes, maybe," I said, leaving the sentence hanging. That evening, the living room camera recorded a phone call. "Yeah, the old lady's calving," Hannah said to someone. "Give it another week and I'll have the power of attorney." "No, the son's useless. He does whatever I tell him. 800,000. I already told you. Yeah, same plan as Santa Fe. But this time it's not going to fail. Same plan as Santa Fe. I played that recording 3 times, my stomach churning. She'd done this before. This wasn't her first time. On Thursday, 3 days after I'd first met with Bobby, he called me. "Joan, I need you to come to my office now." His voice was tense, almost urgent. "What did you find?" "Not over the phone. Come now." When I arrived, Bobby was waiting with a file folder so thick it could barely close. "Sit down," he said, closing his office door. On his desk was the file. He opened it slowly, like he was handling something dangerous. "Joan," he began, "Hannah Sterling is not who she says she is." My heart stopped. First, Bobby pulled out a document. Her full name is Hannah Marie Sterling, 34 years old, born in Phoenix, Arizona. But there's something Patrick definitely doesn't know. He placed a marriage certificate in front of me. Hannah is married. The world tilted sideways. What? Legally married to a man named Tyler Bennett for 8 years. They never divorced. The marriage is still active. I stared at the certificate. Her name. Her signature. Date, March 14th, 2017. That means... My voice broke. Her relationship with Patrick is legally... Nothing, Bobby finished. If they tried to get married, it would be bigamy, a felony. He pulled out more papers. But there's more, so much more. He showed me a police report. Phoenix, Arizona, 2019. Hannah had been reported by a woman named Patricia Thompson. The charge, fraud. Hannah had been living with Patricia's son, convinced the family she needed help, and over 6 months, forged documents attempting to sell a family property valued at $200,000. I felt sick. The charges were dropped because they reached an out-of-court settlement. The family paid her $10,000 to disappear and never come back. Bobby moved to another document. Austin, Texas, 2021. Another complaint, this time from a 60-year-old man named Michael Rodriguez. Hannah had become his girlfriend, moved into his house, and in less than a year had drained his bank account of over $20,000. More papers, more complaints, more victims. Santa Fe, New Mexico, 2022, an entire family. She'd convinced them she was a real estate agent, scammed them out of $15,000 as a down payment on a house that never existed. Each document was a hammer blow to my chest. "And now she's here," Bobby finished. "In your house, with your son, following the exact same pattern she's used for years." I couldn't breathe, literally couldn't get air into my lungs. "Patrick," was all I could say. "Patrick is with a professional con artist." "Patrick is with a predator," Bobby corrected. "Someone who picks vulnerable targets and bleeds them dry. This is what she does, Joan. It's her life." He put another photograph on the desk. A man in his early 40s wearing mechanic's coveralls standing in front of an auto shop. "This is Tyler Bennett, her legal husband. He still lives in Phoenix, works as a mechanic. When my investigator spoke to him, he said Hannah disappeared 3 years ago. Took money, jewelry, documents. He looked for her for months, but eventually gave up. Never filed for divorce because, in his words, why waste money on a lawyer for someone I hope I never see again?" Bobby leaned forward. "He's willing to testify if needed. To confirm their marriage is still active. To tell the court what Hannah told him 2 months ago. She contacted him? Yes. Asked to borrow $5,000. Said she had an investment opportunity. He refused, but he told my investigator something interesting." Bobby's eyes were hard. "Hannah bragged about Patrick. Said she'd found an idiot with his own house and an old lady on her last legs. Said in a few months she'd have enough money to disappear again." The room spun. Not for me, I already knew who Hannah was, but for Patrick. My son, the man who worked 18-hour days sending out resumes, who lay awake at night worried about his future, who loved that woman with every fiber of his being. To her, he was just a fool, a tool, a means to an end. "Tyler is willing to testify," Bobby continued, "to swear to everything Hannah told him, to confirm their marriage is still active." "Good," I said, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it. "Because it's almost time." "Time for what?" "To spring the trap." That evening, I didn't go down for dinner. I heard Patrick's soft knocks on my door, his voice asking if I was okay, saying we needed to talk, but I didn't answer. Instead, I stayed in my room, sitting by the window, watching the shadows grow long in the garden. And that's when I heard them. Voices from Patrick and Hannah's room, arguing. I moved closer to their door, silent as a ghost. It was slightly ajar. "You can't keep doing this, Patrick." Hannah's voice was frustrated. "Your mother is suffocating us. Don't start. Please don't start. We live in her house. We eat her food. Everything is hers, hers, hers. For how long? Are we just going to depend on her for the rest of our lives?" "I'm looking for work, Hannah. I just had an interview last week. And in the meantime, we just stay here like two freeloaders? Like teenagers living with mommy?" Silence. "What do you want me to do?" Patrick's voice sounded exhausted. "I want you to be a man, Patrick. I want you to set boundaries. Tell her this house could be ours if she'd just sign it over. I mean, it's going to be yours anyway when you know, when she's gone." She didn't say dies, but it hung in the air like poison gas. "I can't ask my mother for that. Then we're never going to have anything of our own. We'll never be independent." A pause. "Sometimes I think you love your mother more than you love me." "Don't say that." "It's the truth. You always defend her. You always take her side. What about us, Patrick? What about our future?" I couldn't listen anymore. I backed away silently, went into my room, locked the door, sat on the edge of my bed, the file Bobby had given me still in my hands. And then something inside me broke completely. Not dramatically, quietly, like the sound of a branch snapping under too much weight. For 2 years I'd endured. I'd been patient, understanding. I'd let them treat me like an inconvenience because I didn't want to lose my son. But I'd already lost him. I lost him the day he chose to believe her instead of me. I opened the file again, looked at all those complaints, all those victims, and I made a decision. I was not going to be another victim. The next morning I went downstairs with a smile that had taken me 20 minutes to practice in the mirror. "Good morning," I said cheerfully. Hannah looked up from her phone, suspicious. "Good morning, Joan." I poured my coffee, sat down, then dropped my bomb. "You know, I've been thinking about what you said, about the house, about power of attorney." Hannah tensed immediately. "Oh? There's just so much paperwork, so many things to sign. The bank called yesterday and I didn't understand a word they were saying." I put my hand to my head. "I just feel like my mind isn't working like it used to." Hannah moved closer, that fake compassion she'd perfected sliding over her face like a mask. "Well, that's what Patrick and I are here for, Joan. To help you." "Really?" I looked at her with watery eyes. "Because I was thinking, maybe I should give you power of attorney. So you can handle things. You're younger. You understand all this modern stuff." Hannah's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Well, if you think that's necessary, Joan, I'd be happy to help. I just don't want to be a burden." "You could never be a burden." She took my hands, cold, calculating hands. "Let me help you. We'll go to a lawyer together. Get all the paperwork sorted out, proper and legal, so you can have peace of mind." "You'd do that for me?" "Of course, Joan. We're family." Family. The word tasted like poison. "Then tomorrow," I said. "Let's go tomorrow and fix everything." That night I called Bobby. "Tomorrow she's going to try to take me to a lawyer," I told him. "Which lawyer?" "I don't know, but I'd bet it's not a real one, or it's a corrupt one she's working with." "Are you going to go?" "I'm going, and you're going to follow us." "Joan, this is dangerous." "I know, but I need evidence of her trying to complete the fraud. I need it recorded, documented, irrefutable." There was a pause. "All right, but you're wearing a wire, and I'll be half a block away the entire time." Friday morning, Hannah was radiant. "Joan, I'm so glad you're up. I already made an appointment at a lawyer's office for 11. "That was fast." "Well, he's very busy. We're lucky to get a slot." "Of course, because he probably wasn't a real lawyer." I dressed slowly, playing up every movement like it was difficult. Bobby had given me a small device that looked like a decorative brooch, but was actually a camera and audio recorder. "Do I look okay?" I asked Hannah, gesturing to the brooch on my blouse. "You look beautiful, Joan." She had no idea she was recording her own conviction. The lawyer's office was in a neighborhood I didn't recognize, an old building with peeling paint and a liquor store on the first floor. We went up to the second floor. The nameplate on the door read, "Thomas Bradshaw, Attorney at Law." Inside was a cramped office that smelled like mildew and cheap air freshener. A man in his 50s, overweight, wearing a suit that looked like it came from a clearance rack, greeted us with an oily smile. "Mrs. Brookstone, such a pleasure. Please come in." He gestured to a chair in front of his desk. Hannah sat beside me, gripping my arm like I was a fragile child. "So," the fake lawyer began, "I understand you wish to grant general power of attorney to Miss Sterling here." "That's right," I said in a weak voice. "I'm just so tired, I need help." "Perfect. I have the document right here, all prepared. You just need to read it and sign." He passed me several pages. I started to read slowly, squinting as if I was having trouble seeing. It was exactly what I expected. A sweeping power of attorney giving Hannah total control over all my assets. To sell, mortgage, dispose, everything. Is it ready already?" I asked, feigning confusion. "But we just got here." "Oh, Miss Sterling sent me all your information ahead of time," the fake lawyer explained smoothly. "To speed up the process. You know, at your age, it's best not to tire you out with too much running around." "At your age, very considerate." "Sign here, Joan," Hannah said, pointing. "And here, and here." I picked up the pen, moved it toward the paper, and then I stopped. "You know what?" I said, putting the pen down. "I think I need to think about this a little more." The atmosphere in the office changed instantly. "Excuse me?" Hannah said, her voice tight. "It's just, this is a big decision. Maybe I should talk to Patrick about it first." "But you did talk to Patrick, Joan. He's on board with this." "Oh, did I? When?" I feigned confusion. I don't remember." "Last night, Joan. Don't you remember?" Her voice was getting irritated. The fake lawyer jumped in. "Mrs. Brookstone, I really would recommend you sign today. These appointments are very difficult to reschedule, but I'm just not sure." I put my hands to my head. "My head feels so fuzzy today. Maybe another day." "No!" Hannah almost shouted. She composed herself instantly. "I mean, Joan, we're already here. Mr. Bradshaw made time for us. Just pick up the pen and sign. It's for your own good." For your own good. I looked her straight in the eyes, and for the first time in weeks, I let her see something real in mine. Something hard. Something dangerous. "Or for yours?" Hannah turned pale. The fake lawyer tried to intervene, but I was already standing. "You know what? I think I'm leaving. I don't feel well." "Joan, wait. I said I'm leaving." My voice was firmer than it had been in weeks. I walked to the door, down the stairs as fast as I could, heard Hannah behind me calling my name, but I didn't stop. I burst out onto the street, and there was Bobby, waiting in his car half a block down, exactly as planned. "Go," I said, jumping in. He pulled away without questions. I looked in the side mirror. Hannah stood on the sidewalk, looking around wildly, phone in her hand, panic barely disguised on her face. "Did you get it all?" Bobby asked. I touched the brooch on my blouse. "Every word." "Then it's almost time." "Yes," I said, feeling my heartbeat strong and steady. "It's almost time for Hannah to meet the real Joan Brookstone." 3 days passed. 3 days where Hannah tried to act like nothing had happened. 3 days of forced smiles and questions disguised as concern. "Are you feeling all right, Joan? You seemed so upset at the lawyer's office." "I'm perfectly fine," I'd answer, my voice neutral. I gave her no explanations, no reassurance, just silence. And silence, I discovered, was the most powerful weapon of all. I watched her squirm, watched her mind working overtime trying to figure out what went wrong, if I suspected something, if she needed to change strategies, but she didn't know it was already too late. On Wednesday afternoon, while Hannah was out with her friends and Patrick was at another job interview, I made my final preparations. I called Bobby. "It's time. Set it up for Friday night." "The dinner?" "Yes. Contact everyone involved." "Tyler Bennett confirmed?" "He confirmed. He's flying in from Phoenix tomorrow." "And James Mitchell?" "He'll be there, though I think he's still confused about why you're inviting him to dinner." "He'll understand on Friday." There was a pause. "Joan, have you told Patrick?" That question stung. "No. He's going to find out with everyone else. I need him to see it all at once. It's the only way. This is going to hurt him. I know. But the pain of truth is better than the comfort of a lie." Thursday night at dinner, I dropped my final bait. "Hannah, Patrick," I said as we ate in silence, "I want to host a family dinner Friday night." They both looked at me, surprised. "A dinner?" Patrick asked. "Yes. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I think it's time to resolve things, to talk about the future with clarity." I looked at them both. "I want to invite some important people so we can make decisions together, as a family." Hannah's smile returned instantly. "That sounds perfect, Joan. Who do you want to invite?" "My lawyer, Bobby Sullivan, Mr. Mitchell, that buyer you brought over, and a few other people I think should be present." "Other people?" "A surprise," I smiled. "But I promise everything will be very clear by Friday night." Hannah tried to hide her unease, but I saw it, that shadow of doubt crossing her face. "Sounds nice," she said finally. "Excellent. Dinner at 7. Dress nicely. It's going to be a memorable evening." She had no idea just how memorable. Friday dawned clear and bright. Ironic, considering the storm about to break. I spent the morning cooking. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade apple pie. The recipes Arthur had loved, the ones I made for special occasions. The table looked beautiful when I finished setting it. Elegant, dignified, like a stage for what was coming. At 6 o'clock, I took a long bath, put on the navy blue dress I hadn't worn since Arthur's funeral, did my makeup carefully, pulled my hair back in an elegant bun. When I came downstairs, Patrick looked at me, stunned. "Mom, you look beautiful." "Thank you, honey. Today is an important day." Hannah came down minutes later in a tight red dress, heels too high, makeup too heavy. She looked like what she was, a desperate woman trying to impress. At 7 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I said. And the final act began. It was Bobby at the door. Impeccable suit, briefcase in hand, expression serious but supportive. "Joan," he said, kissing my cheek. "Ready?" "Ready?" We walked into the dining room together. Patrick and Hannah were already seated at the table, the good china gleaming under the chandelier Arthur and I had installed 20 years ago. "Patrick, Hannah, you remember Mr. Sullivan?" I said. They both nodded, polite tension crackling in the air. The doorbell rang again. "I'll get it," I said. James Mitchell stood on my porch, looking confused but polite in a sport coat and slacks. "Mrs. Brookstone, thank you for the invitation, though I have to admit I'm not entirely sure why I'm here." "Everything will become clear very soon, Mr. Mitchell. Please come in." I seated him at the table. Hannah watched him with a wary expression, her smile fixed and brittle. The doorbell rang a third time. This time it was William Foster, the real attorney whose name had been forged on Hannah's fake documents. A distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes. "Mr. Foster, thank you so much for coming." "Mrs. Brookstone, when you explained the situation, I couldn't refuse. What's been done with my firm's name is unconscionable." Patrick was looking more confused by the second. "Mom, what's going on?" "Patience, honey. There's one more guest." The doorbell rang one final time, and this was the guest no one expected. I opened the door, and there he stood. Tyler Bennett, Hannah's legal husband. He was in his early 40s, with a face weathered by sun and hard work, wearing clean jeans and a button-down shirt. He'd dressed up for the occasion. "Mrs. Brookstone," he said respectfully. "Tyler, thank you for coming all this way from Phoenix." "It's the least I could do, ma'am. That woman needs to be stopped." I led him into the dining room, and when Hannah saw him, every drop of color drained from her face. She looked like she might faint. "Tyler," she whispered. Patrick looked between them, utterly baffled. "Mom, who is this man?" I stood at the head of the table, all eyes on me. "Patrick," I said, my voice steady and clear. "I'd like you to meet Tyler Bennett." I paused, letting the moment stretch. Hannah's husband. The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop on the hardwood floors. "What?" Patrick's voice came out as a strangled whisper. Hannah shot to her feet. "This is a misunderstanding. I can explain." "Sit down." My voice cut through the air like a knife. Something in my tone made her obey. She sank back into her chair, trembling. I remained standing at the head of my table, in my dining room, in my house. "This dinner is about the truth," I began. "A truth that's been buried under lies for 2 years. A truth that nearly cost me everything I've ever worked for. Mom, what are you talking about? Patrick looked completely lost. Let me show you, son. I nodded to Bobby. He took his laptop from his briefcase and connected it to a small portable projector, aiming it at the blank wall of the dining room. We're going to watch a movie, I said. The story of how Hannah Sterling has been destroying our family. I pressed play. The first image that appeared was a marriage certificate. Hannah Marie Sterling and Tyler James Bennett. Date, March 14th, 2017. Hannah is legally married, I said, my voice calm. She never divorced. Your relationship with her, Patrick, is legally invalid. You're the other man, not her partner. Patrick stared at the screen like he'd been struck. The next image, bank statements showing Hannah's credit card debts. All 4 cards. All maxed out. $44,000 in debt. This is why she's here. Not for love, for money. Next, the recorded phone calls. Hannah's voice, clear as day. The old lady's caving. Same plan as Santa Fe. $800,000. Then video footage. Hannah entering my bedroom while I was in the garden. Going through my drawers. Photographing my documents. Opening my safe. She stole $8,000 from my savings. Cash I kept for emergencies. Finally, the forged documents. The power of attorney with my signature. A signature I never wrote. She tried to steal my house using forged legal documents. Forgery, fraud, theft. Each image was a blow, each document a stab wound. Patrick had stopped breathing. He sat frozen, eyes fixed on the wall, watching his entire reality crumble to dust. Hannah tried to stand, but William Foster, the real attorney, spoke up. Miss Sterling, I strongly recommend you remain seated. I've already filed a formal complaint with the district attorney's office. There's a warrant being processed for your arrest. She collapsed back into her chair. No, was all she could say. I turned to Tyler. Mr. Bennett, would you please tell us what Hannah said when she contacted you 2 months ago? Tyler nodded, looking at Hannah with a mixture of pity and disgust. She told me she'd found an idiot with his own house and an old lady on her last legs. She said she'd soon have enough money to disappear again. She asked me to loan her $5,000 to speed up the plan. Patrick made a sound, something between a sob and a choked scream. Ryan? Hannah reached for him, but he flinched away like her touch burned him. Don't touch me! His voice was shaking. Don't you dare touch me! I turned to James Mitchell, who'd been sitting in shocked silence. Mr. Mitchell, you were contacted by this woman to purchase a property she had no right to sell. The $15,000 you gave her as earnest money was stolen. Mr. Sullivan will help you recover it and file your own complaint. The man just nodded, still too stunned to speak. Finally, I turned back to Hannah. She was crying now, mascara running in black rivers down her face, that perfect makeup ruined. Please, she begged. I can explain. There's nothing to explain. My voice was ice. You're a professional con artist, a criminal who's destroyed families from Phoenix to Santa Fe to here, and you thought I would be your next victim. Joan, please, don't call me Joan. Each word dripped with venom. You are not family. You never were. You're a predator who saw weakness and attacked, but you made one critical mistake. What? She whispered. I leaned toward her, looking directly into her eyes. You assumed that because I'm 68 years old, I was finished, that I was weak, helpless, that you could manipulate me and destroy me without consequences. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You were wrong, because I built this house with my own hands. I've survived things that would break you into 1,000 pieces, and I was not going to let some 2-bit criminal take away everything I've ever fought for. I straightened up. Bobby, call the police. 2 detectives arrived within 15 minutes. A man and a woman, both in their 40s, both looking grim. Hannah Marie Sterling? The female detective said. Hannah nodded weakly, mascara-stained tears still streaming down her face. You're under arrest for forgery, fraud, and theft. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. They handcuffed her right there in my dining room, on the hardwood floors I'd helped lay 35 years ago. As they led her toward the door, Hannah looked at me one last time. There was no pleading in her eyes anymore, just pure, undiluted hatred. This isn't over, she hissed. For you it is, I replied. It ended the day you decided Joan Brookstone was an easy target. They took her away. The front door closed with a solid thud, and the silence that remained was deafening. After everyone had left, Bobby with his laptop, William Foster with promises to keep me updated, James Mitchell with Bobby's card, Tyler Bennett with a sad shake of his head and a good luck with your boy, ma'am, the house fell into a different kind of quiet. Not the tense walking on eggshells quiet of the past 2 years, just empty. Patrick was still sitting at the dining room table. He hadn't moved since they'd taken Hannah. He just stared at his hands on the table like they belonged to someone else. I sat down across from him. Son, don't. His voice was hoarse, raw. Just wait. So I waited. Minutes passed like hours. The pot roast I'd made sat cooling on the counter, uneaten. The apple pie I'd baked would go untouched. Finally, Patrick looked up. His eyes were red, swollen, devastated. How long have you known? A few weeks? And you didn't tell me. You needed to see it for yourself. If I'd just told you, you wouldn't have believed me. You would have defended her. A bitter laugh escaped his throat. You're right. I wouldn't have believed you. I would have... His voice cracked. I lived with her for 2 years, Mom. 2 years. I slept next to her. I told her I loved her. He ran his hands over his face. How did I not see it? I treated you terribly. I let her treat you terribly. I watched you eat alone in that kitchen and I didn't say anything. I saw her disrespect you and I... His voice broke completely. How can you even look at me? I stood up, walked around the table, knelt beside his chair and took his face in my hands, the way I used to when he was a little boy with scraped knees and hurt feelings. Because you're my son, and sons make mistakes, but they also learn from them. I don't deserve your forgiveness. It's not something you deserve. It's something I give because I love you. I wiped a tear from his cheek. But I need you to understand something, Patrick. This can never happen again. I need you to learn to value what you have, to respect the person who's given you everything. He nodded, crying like I hadn't seen him cry since he was 12 years old and his father was diagnosed with cancer. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I know, baby. I know. I held him. And in that embrace, I felt everything, the pain, the betrayal, the forgiveness, the hope. I'll make it up to you, he said against my shoulder. I don't know how, but I will. I know how, I said, pulling back. Patrick froze. What? I pulled an envelope from my pocket. I'd prepared it days ago, before the dinner, before the confrontation, because I'd known it would come to this. Years ago, I bought a small condo as an investment. It's in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. 2 bedrooms, nice location, close to the light rail. I placed the envelope in front of him. The deed is in here. It's yours, but it comes with conditions. Mom, I can't accept. Condition 1, I interrupted. You're going to live alone. You're going to learn who you are without depending on anyone. Not me. Not any woman. He swallowed hard, nodded. Condition 2, you're going to work. I don't care if it's engineering or construction or driving for Uber, but you will support yourself with your own effort. No more depending on other people. I will. Condition 3, every Sunday you come here for dinner, and we're going to rebuild what was broken, as mother and son, as a real family. His eyes filled with tears again. Why are you doing this, after everything? Because you're my son, and I believe in second chances. I stood up. But this is your only one, Patrick. There won't be a third. He took the envelope with shaking hands, opened it, saw the deed with his name on it. Thank you, Mom. His voice was barely a whisper. I swear I won't let you down. More importantly, don't let yourself down. Patrick stayed that night, his last night in this house as a resident. The next morning, Saturday, he packed his things. It didn't take long. 2 suitcases, 3 boxes, most of what he'd brought 2 years ago. At the door, he hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. I love you too, son. Always. He left, and I closed the door, knowing that for the first time in 2 years, my house was truly mine again. The following months brought a kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. Hannah was sentenced to 8 years in prison. The judge was harsh. You've made a career out of victimizing vulnerable people, he'd said. This court will not tolerate predators like you. Forgery, fraud, theft. Her history of prior complaints weighed heavily in the sentencing. James Mitchell got his $15,000 back, plus interest. He even sent me a thank you card. You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Tyler Bennett finally filed for divorce. Free at last, he texted me when it was finalized. Thanks for helping me close that chapter, Mrs. B. And me? I renovated my house. Not the structure. That was still solid, still beautiful, still the house Arthur and I built together. But the soul of it. I repainted the walls, changed out the furniture Hannah had brought in, removed every last trace of her presence. I turned the old study into a small architectural workshop, started teaching free design classes to women over 50 who wanted to learn a new skill. It's never too late to build something, I'd tell them. I built my first house at 33, built my second life at 68. Patrick kept his word. Every Sunday at 6 o'clock, he shows up, sometimes with flowers from the farmer's market, sometimes with fresh bread from the bakery on Colfax, sometimes just with himself. We eat together at the dining room table, the table where the truth came out, where Hannah was exposed, where our family began to heal. We talk, really talk. Not surface pleasantries, but real conversations about his job search. He found work at a civil engineering firm in March. About his therapy sessions. He's working through trust issues. About his life, his hopes, his fears. And slowly, very slowly, we're rebuilding what was broken. He's dating again. Carefully this time. A woman named Sarah who's a teacher, who he met at a coffee shop, who he introduced to me after 3 months, not 3 weeks. What do you think, Mom? He asked nervously after she left from her first visit. I think she seems genuine, but more importantly, what do you think? I think I'm taking it slow, learning to trust my own judgment again. Good, I said. That's very good. One Sunday in late summer, we were sitting in the backyard after dinner. The lemon tree Arthur and I planted when Patrick was born had just started producing fruit again. Big, bright yellow lemons that smelled like sunshine. Patrick was quiet, watching the sky turn purple and orange as the sun set behind the mountains. You know what I realized? He said finally. What's that? Hannah didn't just try to take your house. She tried to take your dignity, your autonomy, your sense of self. She wanted you to believe you were used up, that you'd already lived your life and should just fade away. He turned to look at me. But you didn't. You fought back. You were smarter than her, stronger than her. You built the trap she walked right into. Your father used to say something, I told him. He'd say, Joan, you're not a woman who waits for rescue. You're a woman who builds the lifeboat, rows to shore, and then goes back for the others. Patrick smiled. That sounds like Dad. You're like him, you know. You have his heart, his capacity for love. That's not a weakness, Patrick. That's a strength. Hannah exploited it, yes, but it's still a strength. I just wish I'd seen through her sooner. Some people are very good at what they do, and what Hannah did was lie, manipulate, prey on people's better natures. I reached over and squeezed his hand. But she lost in the end, because this old woman wasn't as easy to fool as she thought. Patrick laughed, actually laughed. You know what the guys at work call you, after I told them what happened? What? The architect. Like you designed the whole takedown the way you design a building. Foundation, structure, perfect execution. I smiled. I like that. The architect. Your father would have liked that too. We sat there as the last light faded from the sky, comfortable in the silence, comfortable with each other. My son was back. Not the same as before. Better, stronger, wiser. And my house was mine again. Not just legally, but in every way that mattered. Today, as I write this, I'm sitting in my garden on a crisp October morning. The lemon tree is heavy with fruit. The roses I planted 30 years ago are blooming one last time before winter. The lawn needs mowing. Patrick's coming over this afternoon to do it, insists on it even though I've told him I can hire someone. Mom, he always says, let me help. Let me earn my way back into your good graces. You're already in my good graces, I tell him, but I let him mow the lawn anyway, because I know he needs to. I'm 70 now. 2 years have passed since that Friday night dinner. 2 years since Hannah was led away in handcuffs. 2 years since I fought for what was mine and won. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how it all went down, if I wish I'd handled it differently, if I feel guilty about the trap I set, the way I manipulated Hannah into revealing herself. The answer is no, not even a little bit. Because here's what I've learned in 70 years on this earth. True wealth isn't in what you own. It's in what you refuse to let anyone take from you. Your dignity, your peace, your home, yourself. Hannah tried to take it all. She looked at me and saw an easy mark, an old woman, alone, vulnerable, ripe for exploitation. But she forgot something essential. Women like me aren't built on easy days. We're forged in storms, in the fires of building houses with our own hands, of raising children alone, of nursing dying husbands, of surviving grief that would crush weaker souls. And when the storm passes, we're still standing, stronger than before. I hear the back gate open. Patrick's here early, Sarah with him. They're laughing about something. "Mom," he calls. "We brought bagels and lox. Hope you're hungry." I stand up from my chair, the same iron chair where Arthur and I used to drink coffee every morning. My knees protest a little. Age will do that. But I'm steady, strong. "Always hungry when you're cooking," I call back. They come into the garden, Patrick carrying a bag from the good Jewish deli on 6th Avenue, Sarah with fresh flowers. "Mrs. Brookstone," Sarah says, "your garden looks beautiful. Patrick says you planted all of this yourself?" "Every single flower," I tell her. 40 years of gardening. It's amazing what you can grow when you tend to it properly. We go inside together, into the house I built with my own hands, the house I defended with everything I had, the house that's still standing, still beautiful, still mine. Patrick makes coffee in the kitchen, my kitchen, with my pots in my cabinets where they belong. Sarah sets the table, my table with my plates in my dining room, and I stand in the doorway, watching them, feeling something I haven't felt in years. Complete peace. Because castles don't surrender without a fight. And the old lionesses? We always have the sharpest claws.